Well, thanks very much indeed. Welcome to the show. I am Jim Ferguson, and I've got some great guests here who I met on a Spaces event last Friday. Suzanne Matthews and Madeleine Ebbs. Welcome to the show. How are you both?
All good.
We're
Jen,
very
thank
good,
you.
Jim.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us on, Jim. Delighted
Ma-
to be here. We're a big fan of yours, so it's a great honor to be on. Thank you.
I have to say it's a real honor for me to have you both here as well. And on that Spaces, we were talking about a lot of things to do with illegal immigration. We'll come on to a lot of that. But for the sake of the audience, because it's the first time you guys have been on with me, we'll start with yourself, Suzanne, if I could. Just say a little bit about who you are, roughly where you're located, and what you do.
My name is Suzanne Matthews. I'm located in Drumcondra, Dublin. So I've led a full life sort of in different careers as a finance manager. I'm now semi-retired. I had a coaching and mentoring business, but I ended up with two very serious injuries, two operations this year, which kind of rendered me to take some time out. So during that time out, I decided I would do some volunteer work. Volunteered for Niall Boylan on the European campaign. And then that kind of led me into other things, meeting Madeleine and just gathering all the information, but deciding I wanted to do more volunteer work. I just want to say for the record, Jim, I'm not racist. I'm not anti-immigration. Genuinely not. I've many multicultural friends in Dublin, so I want to state that for the record. Nor are we affiliated, myself and Madeleine, with any political parties or any groups, anything like that. We're just two mothers and we're just trying to do our best.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Suzanne. And Madeleine, the same question for yourself. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're located.
I'm located in the north side of Dublin in Santry. Been a community activist all my life. Would never consider myself far right, far left. Just always fighting the good fight to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I worked 25 years in community development. I retired 2 years ago, but I know I left some fantastic, positive legacies behind. And as Suzanne says, we both met when we were canvassing for Niall Boylan at the MEPs. We found we had a lot in common, and we didn't want to be, as I said, two keyboard warriors sitting at home giving out. So we decided to get together to try and endorse people to come out and make change and register to vote. So we're two Irish mothers. We're both critical thinkers. We're not affiliated to any political party, and we literally want to set about waking people up to register to vote, and that's all we want to do. People have become so disillusioned with our political system, so they think by giving out to each other in their homes or on their laptops or whatever, but we want to tell them you need to get out and get politically positively motivated, register to vote. That's our message.
Well, I absolutely agree with that, and we're going to come on to some of the content. But I mean, at the end of the day, you know, the Scots and the Irish have always had a close affinity. We are Celtic people, similar music, similar art, similar ways of life. Just you know, we've always and the Scots and the Irish have never really had any trouble between our nations at all. In fact, we've often sent forces over you. And you've done the same for us. So, you know, there's a real affinity. We mustn't forget the Welsh, they're Celtic too. But I think what we're going to be discussing is incredibly important, especially for Ireland right now. And I had the great pleasure of being in Dublin. I was in Limerick before that. Then I went down to Dublin. I was at Roscrea. I was at a lot of these places where the local hotels have been filled with massive amounts of young men, aged between 19, 25, 30. And they're really flooding into Ireland right now. I see Ireland as a primary battleground for the globalists and what they're attempting to do. And of course, it's not just in Ireland, it's in the UK, it's in England, happening in Wales, Scotland. It's happening actually wherever you find globalist infiltrators squatting in our respective governments and parliaments. They're on both sides of the house, they're everywhere. And they are following a globalist narrative that is detrimental to the interests of national countries and sovereign countries. And they don't want strong national voices. They're trying to silence people with disinformation and misinformation. And what a sorry state of affairs, ladies, where we've got to start by saying, well, by the way, we're not far right, we're not racist. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just about people, ordinary people, having the right to protest what's going on in their countries because it's affecting everything from healthcare to education to housing. And we're seeing massive rises in crime. So You have both started to look at a campaign to get people out to vote. So tell us, we'll start with yourself, Suzanne. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with that.
Well, we just launched it very basically on a flyer. We got it printed out. It's been going very well on social media. Niall Boylan is doing a video for us. So he's taking all our clips. He's going to release that video hopefully at the weekend. So then we started just campaigning around Northside and Coolock this week, just stopping people. And the amount of interest was amazing. So we've now linked in with the Coolock Says No group, went up and spoke to them, and they were like, this is great. We were going to do this. So everybody says somebody was going to do it, but we are going to do it. So we are linked in with some of the other Coolock Says No people. We're going to get a clinic, or we're going to get rooms in various locations where people can come. We're going to have the hard copies. We're going to literally handhold people to do it, walk them through the process. That's the big thing, because 50% of people out there, as Madeleine said, are disillusioned. Or Jim, as somebody in Coolock said the other day, there are people with learning disabilities. There are people who are not good with forms. I'm not good at driver, as Madeleine knows, but we all have certain skills. But I mean, and we're good at paperwork. So people are really excited, and we've only started this week. So I'm putting it out in all the spaces, and we're giving our Twitter details and our Instagram. And people can just message us. We'll talk them over the phone. We let them know what locations we're going to be in, and we're just rolling it out. And then people are joining, and they're also saying, you know, we can help. Because Jim, the whole point about this is just to get back to why we're doing this. I just want to clarify, and again, sometimes you need to clarify these points. I'm not anti-immigration. The government love to gaslight us with misinformation and disinformation and lump everybody into immigrants. There are three very clear categories for me, which is really clear. There are people who come to Ireland legally, people who come over here with papers, they want to work, they want to live in Ireland, look brilliant. There are genuine asylum seekers who come in, a very small number, and they come in. And you've said this, but I'm just reiterating this again, because people lump everything into immigrants and it drives me crazy. Then you have the mass plantation of 20 to 40-year-olds. I see them, we see them everywhere, being brought into the country. They're not vetted, they're not documented, they could be illegal, they could be criminals. And, you know, it's just crazy to think our government think it's okay just to lump them into a community for both sides, for the community, but also for the people themselves. Coolock, you know, a paint factory. So that is going to cause unease. So whilst we're trying to get on the momentum of people being upset and angry, we're saying turn that anger and upset into something positive. Because when Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael swanned through the local and general elections, now Niall Boylan did get 10% of the vote. He had a great campaign, knocked out the Greens. But the point is, the government are sitting back thinking they're going to swan through, and they have to be challenged. So that's kind of, and maybe Madeleine wants to speak about.
Well, she's covered the three lots of type of immigration that we are dealing with. We have the legal immigrants, the legal asylum seekers, and illegal unvetted male migrants. So our problem is, we can't get our heads around why governments think it is okay to dump anything from 500 up to a couple of thousand people into these small rooms in industrial areas like Battery Hens. It's beyond beggars' belief that they think this could work. So we are getting, and all the stats, all the social media out there, there's pictures going up every day, the amount of people who are coming in through Belfast area, getting taxis down to Dublin, they are all undocumented, unvetted. I think the latest stats is that 70% of immigrants in the country are undocumented. And the government are trying to spin, these are doctors, nurses, lawyers, barristers. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it was great on that Spaces last Friday, because there was actually people there like Keith Owen, there was a few other guys talking directly from Coolock. And it was interesting to meet them and to hear from them, and very much appreciative of their comments. Going back to your point there, Madeleine, if you're trying to analyze the situation about mass illegal immigration in a logical way, it doesn't make sense.
No.
Because it can't make sense. People need to understand this is by design. They are doing this for a purpose, and it's not a good purpose. They are truly looking to destabilize and weaken Ireland and the United Kingdom, and every other country that they infest. And the reason that they're doing that is that if you have a strong national identity, that is an obstacle for what their end game plan is. And the end game plan is a new world order, a one world government that they control. And they're very serious about it. And everybody that's assigned to the globalist movement is also very much involved with that. Now, there are competing factions within the globalist camps, but they have one thing in common: a globalist one world order that they control. So they don't want sovereign nations. And
No.
Ireland is at a tipping point, because for people that don't maybe know or aren't Irish, there are 3 million Irish citizens. So it's a small population, but we have seen that increase to 5 million within the last 4 to 5 years. And that is largely made up of illegal migrants and those people that are coming in. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you take those age categories of the young men that's coming into Ireland, and indeed all these other countries, they're all young military age men. There's no families, there's no children, there's no women. It's all young male men. And if you take the 3 million of the Irish population and you take into consideration the elderly, the children, the women, what proportion of young fighting age Irishmen are left? Well, you might find that it's actually a tipping point where they are now outnumbered by all these young African and Middle Eastern men who have flooded into the country. And it's very scary. And we've seen machete attacks in Southend in London, Hartlepool. I mean, there's daily occurrences in England now, here in London, where we are seeing this lawlessness spreading. And, these people that are coming here, they have no affinity with Ireland. They have no affinity to your religion. They have no affinity to your culture or your identity. They are effectively a hostile invading force. And if they were to be armed, we could see a Rwanda-style situation taking place. It's very serious. The government in Ireland knows this. The government in the UK knows this. They know exactly what they're doing. It's not that they're stupid. They know exactly what they're doing, and they are doing it quite deliberately. So this campaign, I think, is really useful. I think Freedom Train International is taking a big interest in this, because we would be very much encouraging people to peacefully use their vote to effect proper change. And if there's 50% of people that are not voting in Ireland, well, we've got to reach out to them. And I would be very happy to help support you in that cause. I think it's a worthy and noble cause.
Can I just say something, Jim, on that point of the people not voting? I was just going to say, and I know Madeleine wants to come in, and I know she'll have a good point. Just the difference in Ireland is we have what we call the gravy train. So I just want to talk about that and just get your feedback. So I was speaking to 2 French teachers who were in Ireland 2 weeks ago. They were doing a course, and they were far left, and I was talking about Le Pen, and I was curious. But I explained to them about Coolock, and I explained to them that the majority of the plantation centres in Ireland are actually now run by private companies, and their jaws dropped to the ground. They said, sorry. And they said, no, in France, bad enough as France is, the government own the processing centres, the government own the accommodation centres. In Ireland, we have this huge gravy train. I won't put a list ahead of me, but I'm about City West Hotel, the Cape Wrath Hotel Unlimited Group. They have received 129 million from Q1 21 to Q1 24. They have been paid 129 million from the government. The third one on that list is a company called Brimwood Limited, almost 80 million. That's owned by a guy called McEnany. He's a GAA manager. He was well known and respected in Ireland. Himself and his family have now got into this business. They own 3 properties where I live. I live in quite an affluent area, as Madeleine does. I live in Drumcondra. TCU is there. 3 properties there he owns. And the last one, Townby, 43 million has been paid to them. And Townby are the company who own Coolock. So I just want to, and I totally get what you're saying about the government and the globalism. But in Ireland, we have this second layer of corruption where if you have money to invest, you can buy a property, you can then put people in and you can make millions. So the normal people, apart from trying to battle all the other aspects of this, we have this other layer of corruption in the loop.
Can I just say,
I was just going to say, yeah, absolutely. The globalists know that, and they will find people who are willing to sell out their country and their countrymen and women as well. So it's a really good point. That's a fantastic amount of money. By the way, it's not the government that's giving them the money; it's the taxpayers via the government are giving them the money. It's your money, and they're misusing it. Sorry, on you go, Madeleine, please.
Well, what I was going to say was, because of our corrupt media here that is totally owned by the government, a vast majority of the people in Ireland and in the UK are getting the one stream of news all the time. So when they're not, there's a very small amount of people on Twitter or X, I'm quite new to that, but there's a very small percentage of people on there that where you can pick up the real news. So if we didn't have the likes of gripped media here, Lawyers for Justice Ireland, we wouldn't know what's going on. So we've a battle ahead of us trying to tell people, like, what you're hearing on mainstream news, as you know, going back over the last 4 years, is it's completely tailored to suit the government narrative. And talking about globalists and one world, I actually came across that 10 years ago in Italy. I did a tour of the island with a historian, and he talked about globalists and one world. And I thought I was listening to the makings of a movie, because I just couldn't see that actually happening in the world we were living in. But as the next few years unfolded and scamdemic happened, and it just all started to fall into place. So what has happened here with the governments, with the Ukrainians coming into all the countries, they kind of softened the blow and made way then for this mass invasion. Our government will tell us that people are assimilating, they're integrating. That is not assimilation or integrating. Putting anything from 500 military age men into a box, into an industrial box. Most of the properties that these people have taken over are industrial. They were never destined to have people live in, and the governments around Europe are literally moving pieces on the chessboard to suit themselves at the expense of the taxpayer. And it's heartbreaking to see what's happening to our beautiful countries and people asleep while it's all unfolding.
Well, I love the people of Ireland. You know, I've never met an Irish man or woman that I didn't get on very well with, and that's the honest truth. I've met many, but you know, the Emerald Isles is a special place, and what people need to understand is that there is an end game plan that the globalists are planning. And as I say, this is not by accident. This isn't just something that suddenly happened. It's happening in the United States at the US southern border. But I want to come back to a very important point, because when I was in Dublin, I went on a march there with about 10,000 Irish patriots.
You were there?
You were there? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Well.
Oh yeah, we're at all the protests.
Well, I was on the steps of O'Connell Street at the post office, where it all kicked off in 1916, of course. When
My
the
grandfather was part of the 1916 rising. I just want to throw that in my blood.
Okay.
He was a pallbearer for Arthur Griffith. I'm just throwing that in because I'm proud of that. He was a pallbearer for Arthur Griffith's funeral. Then I ended up living off Griffith Avenue. So go figure that out.
Okay. All right. Well, I was very honored to be in that march, and I didn't realize it, but I was actually invited to speak. So I actually spoke to the assembled crowd there. Maybe you were at the back. I don't know where you guys were. We didn't know each other at that point. But you know, I was explaining that the people of Scotland and Ireland have a very close affinity and identity. And indeed, I have an ancient family connection to Dublin, would you believe? So on my father's side. So, you know, that went down very well, I have to say. But what shocked me, and it did shock me, I thought, I can't be hearing this. The crowd were chanting. What was it they were saying? It was about Sinn Féin. It wasn't very polite, so I probably can't repeat it. But it was, they really, really were turning against Sinn Féin. And for anybody that doesn't realise, Sinn Féin were kind of the political arm. Correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, but they were kind of the political arm of the IRA. And the Irish Republican Army, you know, were the ones that assembled and fought back and did all the things that they did. And Sinn Féin have completely sold out the people of Ireland. In the Good Friday Agreement, they were allowed, as part of that agreement, to continue to raise funds in the United States of America. And there's a lot of Irish descendants in the United States, as well as Scots, of course, because of our history and everything that happened. But a lot of people in America still financially support Sinn Féin because they think they're standing up for the Irish people. But they're not, are they?
Absolutely not. And during the scandemic years, you will see Sinn Féin change their mind like the weather on what was right and what was wrong. And the feel we get in Coolock and all the protests we've been on, they are not in favour at all with the Irish people. And as an opposition government, they have sat on the fence for the last 4 years. They had ample opportunity to speak up and speak up for the people. But we don't have anybody representing the people here. The government aren't listening. They're bringing in legislation with zero obligation to Irish citizens. The last referendum, we had the yes-no vote there back in March. We got our no vote through where they wanted to take the word woman out of the Constitution. I actually made a speech myself at the Garden of Remembrance in reference to that. And I was so thrilled that people came out and voted for that. Then it got very heavy, the stuff that was coming down through mainstream media then, and the people listening to the corrupt media news just went ahead and put the same shower back into Europe. But we did knock out some of the Greens anyway. That was good. But no.
Oh yeah, that's always good to get rid of the Greens. They're maniacs.
So just on Sinn Féin, like Madeleine is 100% right in what she said, but doing the campaigning back for the European, a lot of people are moving away from Sinn Féin. Like, I'm not going to get into it because, again, I'm not a
political
correspondent, and I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. But it's easy to see when you're talking to people now that Sinn Féin are losing favour. And again, apart from the 50% who don't vote, there is a huge then group of people who would have been Sinn Féin supporters who hopefully, like we were talking to a lovely guy in Coolock the other day. I don't want to mention his name but he's saying, I'm going to run. He ran in the European. They need locals, or he ran in the locals. Thanks, Madeleine. But he's going to run in the general. So if all the individual communities start putting good people forward, and then we get the vote in and swing the Sinn Féin and get the non-voters on board, I'm not sure how a government, an opposition government in government would work with multiple independents, but Jim is a hell of a lot better than what we've got now. That would be a new era for Ireland, and that would be a better option and a better situation than just Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael rolling again and trampling over people basically.
Well, the other thing, of course, is, and I was interviewing a young man from Ireland a few weeks ago now, maybe a month or two, and he was telling me that these illegal migrants are now being allowed to, if they can prove that they've been living in Ireland for the last 6 months, even if it was in a tent, they are now being allowed to vote in the local elections and stand as candidates in the local council elections as well. Yeah. I nearly fell off my chair. I mean, the video's out there. It's on my channel somewhere. And
we met them when we were canvassing. The guy, the Deliveroo guy from Brazil, who jumped in with other people to kind of knock down that stabber last year in Parnell Street. He was run as a local. It was really, I mean, it was just so bad. The man himself was on video saying, I'm not ready for this. He had gone back to Brazil, but they shoved him amongst other people. But I'm hearing as well that the government are trying to, just in my notes somewhere, the government are trying to get, to rush through some of the, the paperwork for people, and they're calling it the silent vote. Calling it the silent vote. Well, we're saying you may get 10,000 in on the silent vote, but we're going to get 10,000 in on people who never registered to vote in Ireland, and the Irish people with their Irish spirit. Jim, it was so invigorating the other day. We started off, we just went up to Northside, we went up to Coolock. It's our first week. Everybody, even people standing outside the shopping centre, chatting, telling us stories. Yes. And then the amount of people who said, oh, I never got my ballot. People who were registered to vote and tried to vote, didn't get their ballots, all that stuff. We are going to be the central helpline for this election. And the other thing, I ended up doing the adjudication over in the RDS. I was roped in to look at the votes. The amount of spoiled votes was, oh my God, criminal, stacked to the floor. And then votes that weren't punched at the top, which again, people didn't notice. So part 2 of our campaign, when we get over the hump of getting people to register, the guys in Coolock have said, will you do a video? Will you do some training? Get the ballot? This is not telling people who to vote for, but telling them how. Because when I was going through thousands of votes, the votes that were spoiled were just criminal. And this is just education. And if the government were any good, they'd have something up on TV every night to say, this is how you vote, but they don't. So here's myself and Madeleine saying, right, we're going to start tackling it, and we're going to, do it.
Well, the Fighting Irish are called the Fighting Irish for a reason, because they are spirited. There is a warrior spirit there. I think that's probably why we've got that affinity here in the Highlands and in Scotland in general. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have to fight hard. And this is the right way to be doing it. This is the right way to be doing it, because there is 50% of people out there not registered to vote. And I think there's a lot of them, if they could just be shown what to do and encouraged, because a lot of people have given up. And that's exactly what the globalists want. They're demoralizing the people of Ireland through RT and various other lying mainstream media news platforms. And they're just making out that there is no hope for you to solve this. So people just give up and stay at home. But there's no point in voting. There is a point in voting, and you've got to use that vote every single time to effect the right kind of change for the people of Ireland.
Well, that's why they rushed through the Immigration Pact. We've heard that politicians don't really canvass in certain parts of the north side of Dublin because they know they're not registered and they know they're not going to vote. The other thing about using all these industrial areas, like you would think it would be common sense that governments would know and local councils would know that you need loads of municipal planning around when you're going to build something new. But now with the present laws now, nothing has to go through the local councillors, and Board Pleanála now, if somebody makes an application to them, they're just banging up these towers, blocks and towers of apartments. They're going over to private enterprise. And again, we don't know who's coming. Nobody has any information on who's coming into our areas. Nobody has any information because they're all undocumented.
I go back to my point about Sinn Féin, because they're getting, I don't know what kind of funding they're receiving from the United States, but it's probably a lot of money. And that's putting independents and other political parties at a serious disadvantage. That, I don't know, ladies, if there was a time, I mean, I don't know if there was a time limit given to that, or if they just gave it to them forever and ever and ever. But that needs to be addressed. I mean, I think that that's deeply unfair. And it's giving them an unfair advantage. If they're getting a lot of money coming in to produce leaflets and canvas and all these other things, and they're not working for the people of Ireland, quite honestly, they're selling the people of Ireland out. And, in Scotland, it's kind of similar. We've got the Scottish National Party. They're in bed with the globalists as well. They're doing nothing for the people of Scotland either. And it's a very similar situation. Of course, that's probably why the SNP in Scotland and Sinn Féin have always had that cosy relationship, because they're all globalists together, but they're doing it to the detriment of the Irish and the Scottish people. So we've got to share.
I think the people are waking up to Sinn Féin because, for example, like an area like Coolock, Sinn Féin haven't been any support to them. I'm on a few different spaces. I just join and listen, but I'm hearing a lot of people, and a lot of American people come on, Irish Americans, and a lot of people running those spaces are driving that message home: is stop the money coming to Sinn Féin. So, I think the message is leaking out, Jim, slowly but surely. Agree, Madeleine?
Absolutely. And independents now are our only way forward. We have to just not give the support to these big parties who, since Scamdemic, have blocked themselves up in their ivory towers. They don't speak to people. They don't communicate with people. They don't know anyone in their constituency anymore. There's no walking into public offices, walking into clinics as they used to have. You have to pick up a phone and you have to speak to a machine. So it's very frustrating for the ordinary person out on the ground to try and make a change. So we're going to try and be that buffer in the middle. It's a big challenge. Would you be at it sometimes from 8 o'clock in the morning, researching, fact checking? We're printing off the leaflets at our own expense. We don't even care about that. Literally to just try and make a change, and hopefully people will come on board.
And the other thing is, Jim, just, there's a group of people in Ireland, I call them, I don't call them, I heard somebody calling them stabilitarians, which is a great word. People who were in their lovely house with their 2 cars and their 2 holidays a year, who kind of know something is going on, but it's not affecting them for the moment. They think it's not affecting me, but they don't seem to realize that it will affect them. Like, it's going to come down. You've got the second group of people, a lot of my old school friends who are now over that hump, who have been gaslit by, if you mention anything, you're far right and racist, and people hate to be called that. So you got to get over that hump. And that's why I stay it out. I say, first thing I say, because I was attacked on Niall Boylan's show one day by this lady who said, that woman is racist. And I literally called her on it and said, don't call me that, because that is not correct. So there's another group of people in the 50% who do vote, who are just voting automatically. And I've heard people say, older people, like when the no vote was around, if I went into a supermarket or a shop and I was talking to, I saw some little old woman, I was saying, you know, who are you voting for? And I explained my case. So it's just messaging.
How long have you got to try to get this done? I mean, when is the next election taking place?
They're saying that the drums are beating out that it's going to be October, but apparently they only have to give 3 weeks notice. So sure, we're just going to do this anyway. It's something we feel very passionate about. We do feel we've a lot of resistance in us, resisting this globalized agenda that has been going on for the last 4 years, this brainwashing and then this mass psychosis that's going on in the world. But we do see, we are watching all the different countries, and people are starting to speak up and people are starting to rise up. We're not endorsing violence by any shape or form, but we just think it's quite hypocritical that our government, we're supposed to be taking people in from war-torn countries, and yet they're declaring war on the actual people. You know, so things are very nasty at the moment, and we're just trying to do right by the right people.
So we've got August, September, October, Jim. So we're saying we hit the ground this week running. We'll be hitting the ground. We have another lady working with us. So we're just going to hit the ground running, get out on social media. Everybody who we've spoken to is very supportive. Everybody's sharing it. So it's just when we actually sit down with people and we do it and we tick a box and say, you're registered now or whatever, I'll feel happier. We're going to try and keep some numbers, because it'd be great in a month to say we converted 1,000 people, 2,000 people, but let's see how that goes.
Well, you know, 3 months is a depending on when they call it, of course. But I mean, that's going to give you a little bit of time. It sounds like you're both extremely active, which is a great thing to see. I'm a bit like that too. There's a time for talking and there's a time to get stuck in and get things moving. Sounds to me like you two are very much involved in that. So do you guys have a website, or how do people get in contact with you?
Well, Suzanne did up some leaflets. Like, we're total amateurs at this. We're not political people. She did up some leaflets and she's introduced me to Twitter and Instagram, and it's word of mouth at the moment. And as I say, when we go around the different shopping centres to meet people, we give our leaflets. Hopefully they'll pass them on. So it's literally kind of word of mouth at the moment, and the bit of social media that we have going. But now we're talking to you today, so that's great. That'll be a bonus.
So we're not going to a website, Jim, I think, but I think the leaflet, the social media, with Niall promoting, Niall is doing this, as I said, this sort of video. He's going to endorse us, push it out. But that's
Niall McConnell. It's not Niall McConnell.
Niall Boylan.
Niall Boylan.
Oh, right. Got it. Okay.
And he ran in the for the European elections. He did very, very well. And his show actually is the only thing in Ireland that we have at the moment where he actually gives a space for people to debate. He doesn't want everybody coming on saying the same thing. So it's the only place you can hear honest debate. We're not getting it from any of our mainstream journalists or TV stations. So no matter who you are or what you believe in, he will give you the space on his show to debate it. So as I say, and that's
the good thing about that, of course, is that other people who may have a different perspective can be converted to the cause, as it were. You know, they can hear the arguments, like the two French ladies that you were referring to. If they understand it, a lot of young people are getting this nonsense driven into them in school. They're getting all this sort of one particular view, and it's once again been driven by the globalist through the education system. So it's very dangerous, and that's the difficulty. And of course, here on X, on Twitter, it's the only real platform, thanks to Elon Musk for doing what he's done. I mean, if he hadn't done what he'd done, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. Because if I'd spoken about the things I speak about in the previous regime, I'd have been shot and buried and gone, you know. So and silenced. So I mean, at the end of the day, what has to happen is we got to use whatever platform we can, but that personal touch, that personal thing that you're doing, where you're actually leafleting, that's powerful. I mean, it's very time consuming, but it's probably the most effective way of actually getting people on side. And I commend you both for it. So
And we'll
What
probably
I'll
do
do
videos,
is,
Jim. We'll do like we will, we'll plateau next week to actually, I'll start doing videos on Twitter, and Madeleine will too, of just recording every day, just reminding people and just building it up that way, because it's just a matter of, getting it started, getting the grassroots in, getting people on board, getting some centres booked next week. Like the guy from Coolock has been on to me twice to say next Tuesday we're going to kick off. He's going to meet us up in Northside, and he's going to get people. He's put the word out that these two
right,
ladies can help. So look, it's
okay.
the start.
But
Now,
and
you
also,
mentioned something. Sorry, I'll come back to you in a second. In that last spaces that we did, we found out that there was actually water cannon actually on their way down, or were in Dublin. And I
yeah,
just wondered, because you remember you warned, you said, well, this protest that's been organised isn't from the normal organisers, and we were worried that the far left, the Antifa mob,
yeah.
might have been doing something with the collusion of the Irish globalist government to actually cause a situation, then blame it on far right racist thugs and all the usual crap. So what happened with that? Was there a follow-up to it? Did it go ahead? What was the update to that?
No, it didn't go ahead, and everybody came to the same conclusion. Nobody could figure
Right.
out who put the poster up, but thank God, everybody passed the word around, and there
Mm-hmm.
was no, and any of the protests we've been at, and if you were at the one in O'Connell Street, they are all peaceful, because it's
Mm-hmm.
usually the older age group like us, mums,
Mm-hmm.
grandmothers, grandfathers. They do not instigate. They do not instigate the violence at the protests. We've been at them all.
What was your thoughts
There's
of the?
plenty of, Jim, there was, sorry, just to say, there was plenty of notice last week. Like everybody put out the word that this was a setup. So certain
Mm,
people, like the guys still went up. They were afraid not to go up, not
mm,
afraid, but the local guys didn't want to, because people, like strangers were saying to me, is there a protest in Coolock today? So basically, as
mm,
Madeleine said, there was a group up there. There was no trouble. There was more guards
mm,
and the cannons, and it was such a waste of resources. The
Yeah,
cannons, the
mm,
guards,
mm.
and a few people peacefully protesting. So they kind of, I suppose, called the bluff of whoever set it up. But it was a waste of taxpayers' money again
yeah,
Mhm,
for all
mhm.
the resources that were
yeah.
pulled in for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But they don't look at it that way. They're quite happy to use your taxpayer euros to throw it away if they can try to catch you guys out and try and make a situation out of something that's not actually really there. But yeah, I think you were right to call it, and I think you did the right thing, Suzanne. There was a lot of people tuned into that spaces, and I think the word did get out. So well done to you. I was going to ask you your opinion. We're sort of approaching the last segment of the hour, and I'm going to give you both a couple of minutes to say whatever it is you want to say. But let me ask you the question: what was your reaction when you saw the little girls in England getting brutally stabbed and murdered? What was your thoughts?
Well, like any mother, absolutely heartbroken. And the exact same thing happened here in Dublin City last November.
Yeah.
Absolutely heartbreaking, and makes you feel so deflated, so hopeless. And then we think, no, we have to spur things on because we have to make this right. Um, it's beyond words how sad that is, and that there's no real protection in the countries in any of the countries in Europe for anybody at the moment. So
What would
hopefully,
you say? What would you say to the people that are making millions from these globalists by selling out the countrymen and women and seeing stabbings and rapes and attacks on women and children? What would you say to those people?
I would say to them that they need to look in the mirror, because they're selling out to the devil. They really are selling out to the devil. And all these companies here, the ones I've highlighted earlier, particularly the ones like that Townby, McEnany, they make me, but they don't care, Jim. I've seen interviews, I've seen, loads of people have interviewed them. They don't care. If they're making 80 million in 3 years, they just don't care. So we have to cut it out another way. In relation to the stabbings, I was horrified. I think the vulnerability of people, I think for anybody to have children, or to feel that you're worried all the time now about your children. Like I was in the park walking my dog yesterday, and I came across people running everywhere. A little 3-year-old was missing. And my first thought was, I mean, it's terrible to say, my first thought, well, he's
Mm,
been taken. Luckily, the child was found, but everybody was combing around. The police were called. Everybody felt the same way, but nobody would speak out. And it's just, I mean, Madeleine has grandchildren. You put your grandchildren into school, you put them into, dance classes. To think now that there's nobody protecting them. There's really nobody protecting them.
And be under no illusions, it's uppermost in everybody's mind. Because I see the change in the mindset, walking in our local parks. People won't walk on their own anymore. People are moving away to more used spots in the park, where if you wanted to do a long walk, you'd be going this way, that way. But now people are actually watching to see who's in the, it's just terrible, watching to see who's in the parks now. People won't let their kids go to the parks anymore. So it's uppermost in everybody's mind. But we're being made afraid to speak out, because if you say anything, you're labeled far right, you're labeled racist, you're given all these labels, and we're just ordinary people looking to protect our home and our country and our communities, but we're not allowed to say that because we'll be labeled.
And just one last thing, Jim, I want to throw in, because I said it on Space last night and it did resonate with people. It's also people's mental health. You remember, the people in Coolock have been living under this fear of what's going to happen in Crown Paints for months. You've also got people all around the country, Dundrum, all these locations. People are anxious. I've heard people on Spaces. I saw an email from a girl in Dundrum to one of the groups, 21, living with her parents, who were kind of seemed to be older. She said she's suffering from chronic anxiety, chronic depression, at the thoughts of, in Dundrum, 160 people and 260 migrants coming in. Everybody has the same fear. This week, Madeleine and I have heard of 2 places, kind of not locally, but nearby. People are living, that's an awful lot of, forget about all the other stuff, mental health issues. And, it's not fair to put that on people, because that is something that's not discussed.
Yes.
Well, I think fear is how they control us. They want us to be living in fear, frightened to speak up, frightened to say what we think, because they'll immediately castigate us and label us and make out that we're something that we're not. But we've got to lose that fear. We've got to lose that fear. Look, ladies, we're approaching the end of this. We're approaching the end of the segment. I want to start with yourself, Madeleine. Just for a couple of minutes, say whatever it is on your heart to say. On you go.
Well, that we're delighted that we have this opportunity and this freedom at the moment to be able to go out and meet people and talk about what really does matter to them. Delighted to have met Suzanne over the last few weeks and find somebody that is very like-minded, and then to be able to speak to somebody like yourself. I sat for an hour the other night listening to your interview with Peter McCullough. Absolutely loved it. Been a follower for the last 4 years. But this is great that this link has been made between people who feel the same, the grassroots people. So it's just brilliant that we're able to talk to people like yourselves and know that the word is going to get out there, and hopefully with the help of Jesus, we see a better world for my grandchildren and everybody's grandchildren, because the world is just a sick, sad place at the moment because of greed and globalists.
And I would say evil as well, but there we are. But I mean, and Suzanne, same for yourself. Say whatever's on your heart to say.
Yeah, I kind of concur with Madeleine. Since we've started this journey, with Niall, and this journey 2 weeks ago when we came up with this idea, and it's just incredible. I can't even explain. Every day, it's like link, 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 link. Going on your show, we were interviewed last week, the response from people, it's just like universal alignment. We were saying that the other day, when you're trying to do something and hurdles come up, in this particular case, everything we do, somebody phones us and we go another way, and it's just making the path. So I think there is a good positive energy path in the world for people who have a true heart, who are doing it for authentic, genuine reasons, and who are trying to do good. I do think good will find a way to link you up with good people. And that's the only thing I can hold on to, because that makes me feel then that I am part of a good people society, that we can link together and support each other.
Well, it's important to you to know that there are people that will be watching this truly international. We have tens of thousands of Americans, Canadians, and people all over the world who will be listening to this and probably watching it with a lot of interest, because what we're witnessing in Ireland is happening in there are other countries as well. And the people that are living those sort of comfortable lifestyles in Ireland at the moment, they may think they're okay. They're not. they are literally going to be like deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming car if they don't wake up really, really fast. But ladies, I just want to say a huge thank you for coming on with me. I really was impressed when you spoke on the spaces, and I would encourage you to come on. We're doing regular spaces every Friday at 7 p.m. UK GMT. And if I see you coming in there, I'll have you on as a speaker anytime, and that goes to both of you.
Thanks, Jim.
No, my pleasure. And to all the Irish people who might be watching this, you know, you have got a friend here in me, but you've also got a lot of English patriots, Scottish patriots, Welsh patriots, American patriots, patriots from all over the world who are watching you. So the people of Ireland, you're not on your own. We stand shoulder to shoulder with each and every one of you who love your country, who love your communities and your families, and who are willing to take a principled stand peacefully to push back against the globalists. But I will say, the men of Ireland, you're called the Fighting Irish for a reason. It's time to get going. It's time to do the right thing. And these two ladies here, they're the way to do it. That's the clever way. That's the smart way. And I pay tribute to you both for that great work that you're doing. And I hope it really goes well. If there's anything I can do to help, then please let me know. And I hopefully will get you back on the channel in due course to report on what you're getting on and how it's all going.
Well,
so thank you,
so
ladies.
much, big heart, loads of love to everybody. And remember, we're all here together.
Absolutely. So, and once again, but to my thanks to each and every one of you who are out there sharing and helping to spread the word. It is appreciated. You guys are the real stars of this show, you know, and I do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you. This is Jim Ferguson. Till next time,
God bless.
we'll speak
Bye.
soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.